What's up, everybody? Tom Cosm here with interesting video today. It's 1/3 review, 1/3 tutorial, 1/3 me mucking about with Smack Attack, which is the new transient shaper from Waves Audio. I don't usually do videos on kind of post-production, mixing, mastering, shaping plugins because I suck at that kind of stuff, but this one is really interesting in the sense that you can push things to the extreme, really get some interesting creative results, and ultimately use it to be quite creative. So I've gone ahead and made a video which is coming up right now. Whoa! Whoa! What are we doing here? What is this madness? This is, of course, Smack Attack by Waves Audio, their new transient shaper plugin. Waves Audio, if you are not familiar, make ridiculously high quality post-production, mastering, mixing, all that kind of stuff, all those kind of plugins. Things I don't usually make videos on, but this particular one, they were like, hey, you can do some really interesting creative stuff with this. We think you'd really enjoy it, and I must admit, over the last week or so, I've had a lot of fun playing with this, pushing its boundaries, seeing what we can do with it, and I want to show you some of those in this video today. Yeah, it's really helped with things like throwing in a loop and then shaping it into what I want rather than going through a whole bunch of loops and trying to find the right one. Same with snares or kicks, you know, now I can just kind of drag a snare and then shape it into what I actually want it to be. So it's really good in that aspect, as well as pushing things to the limit. And you guys know me in my videos, I'm going to really push this and throw it on things that we're not really supposed to. There's videos on the internet where it goes through all of this systematically and tells you exactly what to do. I will cover what all the functions do, but we're going to do it in a really weird, extreme way. So let me just delete this one for a sec. I'm going to load up a new Smack Attack Stereo VST, open up that drum loop, solo the drum loop. You can see the drum loop down here in Ableton Live. Let's just play it. So it's showing us the waveform in the middle here as we start playing. It's coming along through the middle. Very good. And we can also see it down the bottom in Ableton Live. Now, it's a transient shaper. So what is a transient shaper? Or what is a transient? A transient is a sudden burst of volume or sudden gain in amplitude in a audio feed or a loop. Usually to do with drums, for example, this one has a kick, a snare, and a hi-hat. Each time the drummer hits one of those instruments, it's giving us a transient. And you can see them down here in the actual loop. Ableton's gone through and given us these pseudo warp markers where it says, hey, I can see a transient here. So these two would be the kick, this one would be the snare, here would be another kick, here would be another snare, and even down to, oh, here's the hi-hats. So what this does is it looks for those real time, and when it finds those transients, it allows you to shape the volume of that transient. Basically create your own little envelopes every single time that you hear a transient. So let's go ahead and play with the first knob we can see here, which is the big attack one on the right. We've got two big ones, attack and sustain. I'll talk about the sustain in a minute, but let's get to the attack first. I'm just going to simply bring this up. And if you watch that yellow line in the middle, that's kind of the graph or the amplitude. That's how much it's boosting. It's finding the transients and it's going, okay, I'm going to bring the volume up whenever I hear those transients. And that's all good, but what you'll notice is now it's actually going into the red. So if we look over on my levels over here, we're going into the red. That's no good. Fortunately, Waves have given us the option to choose what happens when it does go into the red. We have an off, which it's currently on. We have a clip mode and we have a limit mode. And I'm going to be using the limit mode because, again, I'm sloppy and this is how I work. And especially if we're going to be pushing things to the extreme, this is really good. This just limits anything that goes over or tries to go over 0 dB. So it never actually goes into the red. So you can see now that we're back in the green again. Oh, very good. It does compress the sound, of course, but who cares? It's a lot of fun. So that's all good. We've got our attack knob, but each one of these, the attack and the sustain, has a sensitivity. So if I bring the sensitivity down of the attack, you'll notice that we get these blue lines moving upwards and downwards. And this kind of, it's like a threshold. It says, okay, I only want to apply this shaping when the transient goes over this particular point. So if I play the sample again, you can look at the waveform and you can see that the kicks and the snares are louder than the hi-hats. And you can actually see them. So let's bring this down. So around here, in between these blue lines, that's where the hi-hats are. They're not really going over that line. However, above the blue line, we're getting the kicks and the snares. Let's make it even a little bit more extreme and bring the attack up now. So you see we're only getting the shapening, or shapening? Yeah, shapening will work. Shapening happening when we have the, when it finds a transient which goes over that particular line. The other interesting thing is this goes up all the way up to 100, but it also goes all the way down to negative 100. So what it's effectively doing is lowering the volume whenever it finds something which goes over this threshold, which of course is just the kicks and the snares at the moment. I'll bring it back up to 100 and bring the sensitivity down to include the hi-hats, or just the tip of the hi-hats. And now we've got a bit of a different sound. It's not so drastic at the moment. We can have a listen to the original because we have a mixed volume down the bottom here. We have a dry and a wet. At the moment, it's at 100% wet, so it's 100% of the process signal. Let's bring it down to the dry and bring it up to the wet. Very good. Now, underneath the attack, you'll notice that we have 3 different modes that we can choose. These define how quickly it goes from the change that it's made to the gain or volume back to its original volume, or back to where it originally should be. We have a needle mode, a nail needle, a nail, and a blunt mode. These 2 are great for drums. This is really fast. This is really fast still, but not as fast as needle. Needle is just a real smack. This is kind of a smack with a little bit of a decay or a little bit of a tail coming down. And this one, which is the blunt mode, it's more for instruments if you like. You can see it has a little bit of a curve up, so it's not so sudden. And then it also has quite a long curve down as well. So we'll use this a little bit more when we start talking about instruments. But let's have a play with this just for now. I'm going to move the sensitivity of the attack up so we're just getting those kicks and snares. Let's choose the needle mode. Actually, a good example would be to use it on something else. I'm going to put a smack attack VST on just this snare that I have here. You might want to hear the snare in context of the whole track. Very good. So this is a brand new smack attack on the snare. Now, if I bring the attack up, very good. Let's bring the sensitivity so it's only going to affect there we go. So at the moment it's currently on nail mode, and you can see we've got this nice kind of tail coming down. If I can change the duration of that, we can actually extend that out even longer. And it pretty much almost follows the waveform now. We can make this much shorter, but that's not very good. What we could do is we could use the needle mode, and now we can see that we have a much sharper snap. If I bring the duration back, you'll see it's really quickly just hitting on the very beginning of the transient and then going back to its normal position really fast. And the blunt mode, it's not going to be very good in the snare example, but just to show you what it looks like anyway. Like so. Very good. So let's go back. I'm going to turn this off. Actually, no, let's play with the snare for a bit. Let's talk about the sustain. I'm going to bring the attack down to 0. Now, the sustain is interesting because the transient has a beginning, which is when the initial hit happens, but it also has the sustain, which is the area after the initial hit happens. So it's kind of the time, or the volume of the sound as it goes from its highest point down to its lowest point. So if I was to bring the sustain up, see how it's really raising the volume of after the initial hit of the transient. And if I bring it all the way up, it's turned this snare into, it's almost like an electro house kind of dance banger snare now. We can also give it attack. And we should put it on limited mode as well because I'm lazy. So that's pushing the hell out of it, but yeah, if you want a snare sounding like that, go for it. Here it is dry. Here it is now in super power dance floor mode. But anyway, I don't want it that extreme. Let's make it a little bit extreme. Give it a bit of that. We also have 3 modes under this sustain as well. We have a linear shape, a non-linear, and we have a soft linear. So these are kind of define the way that it behaves, similar to this one here, what kind of shape it's going to choose to resume back to that original volume. So I'm just mucking around a bit here, just to show you this little, it's kind of like a little envelope for every single time the snare happens. Bit more duration. So you can see it's giving us that initial hit. Let's try the needle mode and bring it back and bring this up a bit. Yeah, it sounds good. Let's listen with the mix. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. So that's kind of like the basics of Smack Attack, or the very basics. I'm going to throw on some other things to show you some more examples, but yeah, we've got the attack and we've got the sustain. So the attack, again, is the very first part of the transient, so how it shapes the very initial smack, and then we have this part here which defines what happens to the sound as that smack fades away, or as that first part of the transient decides to die back down to 0 or negative infinity dB. So I put it on this loop here. Let's go into the loop really quickly. What I'm going to do is bring the sustain all the way down to negative 100. I'm going to bring the sensitivity down. And I'm going to bring the sensitivity up here. And we'll use, needle mode. Or sorry, no, needle mode, and bring the attack even shorter. So we've got this really, really sharp attacky type sound here going on now. Here's the dry. But now I've got, it's just a little bit too much. Let's give it more duration. And a little bit less attack. Maybe a little bit more. And let's listen to that loop now. Very good. Now what else can we put this on? I heard some chords in there somewhere. I think this is it here. Yeah, so I've got kind of a music box, kind of a reggae kind of chord thing going on. Let's load up a Smack Attack VST on this one and have a look. Now, of course, because it's a chord, we do have some transients. So let's see what happens when we bring the sustain up with this one. Interesting. So it's kind of taking that music box sound, which is kind of the kid-like high end of the sound, and extending it out quite a bit. Which I actually kind of like. See, if I bring the attack up, we get quite a lot of snap on it. Put it on limited mode, of course. I think that sounds good. Let's listen with the mix. Maybe a little bit too much. So there you go, just another example of how you can actually use this on not just drums, but other instruments. There are a bunch of presets in here. Let's try, sustain enhancer for piano. Let's see what kind of parameters this does. Quite similar to what I had before. What else we got? Compressor, sustainer for piano, guitar. Yeah, let's try that one. I quite like that. It kind of pumps that music box out. which is really interesting. A whole completely new idea, which I had not thought about putting into this track. It was just a simple kind of reggae beat, like so. Just took the dry down. If we bring it up, and it is clipping here, but it's not clipping there, so I'm just going to leave that how it is. Another thing we can do, I'm going to put it on the master just for fun. I probably wouldn't usually put it on the master, but just to show you, you can, and I know it's going to be absolutely crazy. We'll put it on the master. We don't need to worry about the guard here because I do have an L2 on the master because, again, I'm a very sloppy masterer, and it's very bad to have a limiter on the master, blah, blah, blah. Don't do this, don't do this. But, hey, it's a video explaining how much we can push this, so we don't want to go get any clipping. I'm just going to bring the sustain of the whole entire mix all the way up. Let's reduce the transients, or the very beginning, all the way down. Bring the sustain to 0-ish. I'll bring the attack to about here. What we could do is we could bring the sensitivity right up, so you can see how that, I think these might be the snares or something, and bring the attack down. And bring the duration quite short, so anytime that any of the sounds from the entire mix go over this particular point, it's just going to slightly lower the volume. I mean, you could probably do that by just going and lowering your snares or whatever in your actual audio track, but just to show that you can actually use this on the master and totally muck up the sound. I don't know, some of you might find that useful. I find it funny, but it's definitely useful if you know what you're doing, which I don't. One last thing, I've got a grand piano down here. I was going to do a solo at the end of this track, but yeah, so I've got a grand piano sound. Let me just make sure my MIDI controller's working. Very good. I'm just going to spend 10 seconds very quickly recording this piano sound for you, and then we'll throw it on there and see how that sounds. So I'm just going to hit record and play some notes for you. And of course I finish on a major, but why not? So here we go. I'm just going to quickly adjust the start point of what I recorded. I'm not even going to quantize anything because I just want to see how it sounds. So we start about here. Very good. Let's load up again the VST of Smack Attack and see what the transients look like. So it is a piano. It's got a bit of reverb on it. Let's bring the reverb off completely. And as usual, let's bring the sustain right up and see what happens, because I find this the most fun. We'll put it on this mode, which is the not soft linear mode. Okay, let's bring that back to 0. I'm just double clicking and hitting 0. Let's put the attack up. Here, every note now has much more of an attack. Of course, over in this actual pack that I have, we have a hardness and a brightness, so I'll bring those up. Let's try this blunt mode. Bring the sustain down. It doesn't sound natural, but we've definitely shaped it quite significantly here. I quite like it there. See, it's really hardened up that piano. It's kind of turned it into kind of a nice raw sounding grand piano into something that would be good for like a really full-on compressed pop tune or something. Again, here it is completely with no smack attack. And if I bring it up, so there you go. That is Waves Audio Smack Attack. In its various different ways that it can be used throughout your mix. I'm sure there's plenty of other ones that you could do, but I'm going to stop it there because the video is dragging on a bit. Really interesting plugin. As I said, don't be afraid that it's kind of made for being a shaper or something to use in post-production or anything like that. It can actually be used really creatively and to bring new ideas into a track that you didn't even think of before. A lot of fun. Go and check it out. Waves Audio. My name's Tom Cosm. Thanks, guys. Have a good day.